An attractive, well-dressed woman walks into a shop that sells very expensive Persian rugs. She looks around, spots a beautiful rug, and walks over to inspect it. As she bends to feel the texture of the rug, she farts loudly, very embarrassed. She looks around nervously to see if anyone has noticed. As she turns back, standing next to her is a salesman. "Good day, ma'am. How may we help you today?" Flustered, she asks, "Sir, how much does this rug cost?" "Madam," he answers, "if you farted just touching it, you're going to shit when you hear the price." The headmistress at my exclusive girls' college was lecturing us on sexual morality. "In moments of temptation," she said to the class, "ask yourself just one question. Is an hour of pleasure worth a lifetime of shame?" She got so furious when I got up and asked, "How do you make it last an hour?" Dr. Simon is known throughout London as one of the best consultants on arthritis. He always has a waiting room full of people who need his advice and specialist treatment. One day, an elderly lady slowly struggles into his waiting room. She is completely bent over and leans heavily on her walking stick. A chair is found for her. Eventually, her turn comes to go into Dr. Simon's office. 15 minutes later, to everyone's surprise, she comes briskly out of his room, walking almost upright. She's holding her head high and has a smile on her face. A woman in the waiting room says, "It's unbelievable, a miracle even. You walked in bent in half, and now you walk out erect. What a fantastic doctor he is. Tell me, what did Dr. Simon do to you?" "Miracle, schmiracle, he just gave me a longer walking stick." 90-year-old George went for his annual physical. All of his tests came back with normal results. Dr. Darn said, "George, everything looks great physically. How are you doing mentally and emotionally? Are you at peace with yourself? And do you have a good relationship with your God?" George replied, "God and I are tight. He knows I have poor eyesight, so he's fixed it so that when I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, poof, the light goes on when I pee, and then poof, the light goes off when I'm done." "Wow," commented Dr. Darns. "That's incredible." A little later in the day, Dr. Darns called George's wife. "Thelma," he said, "George is just fine. Physically, he's great. But I had a call because I'm in awe of his relationship with God. Is it true that he gets up during the night and poof, the light goes on in the bathroom, and then poof, the light goes off?" Thelma exclaimed, "That old fool, he's been peeing in the refrigerator again." Murphy asked Patty how he got his black eye. "You'd never believe it," said Patty, "but I got it in church." He said he had been sitting behind a fat lady, and when they all stood for a hymn, he noticed her dress was creased into the cheeks of her bum. "All I did was lean forward and pull it out, and she turned around and hit me," said Patty. It was a week later, and Seamus was surprised to see Patty had another black eye. "I got it in church," he began to explain. He said he found himself behind the same fat woman, and when they stood for the hymn, her dress was once again creased into the cheeks of her bum. My little nephew reached forward and pulled it out. But no, she didn't like that. So I leaned over and tucked it back. A man went to the police station, wishing to speak with the burglar who had broken into his house the night before. "You'll get your chance in court," said the desk sergeant. No, said the man. "I want to know how he got into the house without waking my wife. I've been trying to do that for years." 3 nurses all decided to play a joke on the doctor they worked for. Later in the day, they all got together on break and discussed what they had done to the doctor. The first nurse said, "I put cotton in his stethoscope so he couldn't hear." The second nurse said, "Well, I did worse than that. I poked holes in all his protection." The third nurse fainted. A blonde and a lawyer are seated next to each other on a flight from London to New York. The lawyer asks if she would like to play a fun game. The blonde, tired, just wanted to take a nap, politely declines and rolls over to the window to catch a few winks. The lawyer persists and explains that the game is easy and a lot of fun. He explains, "I ask you a question, and if you don't know the answer, you pay me $5 and vice versa." Again, she declines and tries to get some sleep. The lawyer, now agitated, says, "Okay, if you don't know the answer, You pay me $5, and if I don't know the answer, I will pay you $500. This catches the blonde's attention, and figuring there will be no end to this torment unless she plays, agrees to the game. The lawyer asks the first question. What's the distance from the Earth to the moon? The blonde doesn't say a word, reaches into her purse, pulls out a $5 bill, and hands it to the lawyer. Okay, says the lawyer, your turn. She asks the lawyer, what goes up a hill with 3 legs and comes down with 4 legs? The lawyer, puzzled, takes out his laptop computer and searches all his references. No answer. He taps into the air phone with his modem and searches the net and the Library of Congress. There's no answer. Frustrated, he sends emails to all his friends and co-workers, to no avail. After an hour, he wakes the blonde and hands her $500. The blonde says, thank you, and turns back to get some more sleep. The lawyer, who is more than a little miffed, wakes the blonde and asks, well, what's the answer? Without a word, the blonde reaches into her purse, hands the lawyer $5, and goes back to sleep. One night, a lady with a black eye stumbled into the police station. She told the desk sergeant that she had heard a noise in her backyard and gone to investigate. The next thing she knew, she was hit in the face and knocked out cold. An officer was sent to her house to investigate, and he returned a few minutes later, also with a black eye. Did you get hit by the same attacker? His captain asked. No, sir, he replied. I stepped on the same rake. Husband and wife went shopping to get new dresses for the wife. After seeing numerous dresses, she shortlisted around 100 and further brought it down to 25. Out of these, she asked her husband to choose 5 dresses among them. Then she finally picked up one dress. It took 5 hours to finalize one dress. The husband settled the bill and commented, Adam was very lucky because he and Eve used to wear only leaves. He need not have wasted too much time. Ultimate comment of wife, who knows how many trees Adam had to climb and finally choose the leaves as per the wish of Eve? You're lucky. You have to just sit in AC shop. 3 mischievous old grannies were sitting on a bench outside a nursing home when an old grandpa walked by. One of the grannies shouted, Hey there, we bet we can tell you exactly how old you are. The old man laughed and said, No way you can guess that, you crazy old ladies. One granny winked and said, Sure, we can. Just drop your pants and underwear, and we'll tell you your exact age. The grandpa, feeling a little embarrassed but eager to prove them wrong, dropped his pants. The grannies inspected carefully, asked him to turn around twice, jump up and down a few times. Then they all yelled out together, You're 87 years old. Shocked, the grandpa pulled up his pants and asked, How in the world did you guess that? The grannies burst out laughing and said, We were at your birthday party yesterday. Officer pulls over 5 old ladies for driving too slow. Sitting on the side of the highway waiting to catch speeding drivers, a state police officer sees a car puttering along at 22 miles per hour. He says to himself, This driver is as dangerous as a speeder. He turns on his lights and pulls the driver over. Approaching the car, he realizes that there are 5 old ladies, 2 in the front seat and 3 in the back, eyes wide and white as ghosts. The driver, obviously confused, says to him, Officer, I don't understand. I was doing exactly the speed limit. What seems to be the problem? Ma'am, the officer replies, You weren't speeding, but you should know that driving slower than the speed limit can also be a danger to other drivers. Slower than the speed limit? She asked. No, sir, I just kept the speed limit exactly. 22 miles an hour. The old woman says a bit proudly. The state police officer, trying to contain a chuckle, explains to her that 22 was the route number, not the speed limit. A bit embarrassed, the woman grinned and thanked the officer for pointing out her error. But before I let you go, ma'am, I have to ask, is everyone in this car okay? These women seem awfully shaken, and they haven't muttered a single peep this whole time, the officer asks. Oh, they'll be all right in a minute, officer. We just got off Route 119. A married couple got into an accident, and the husband's face was badly burned. The doctor told him that they couldn't graft any skin from his body because he was too skinny. So the wife offered to donate some of her own skin. However, the only skin on her body that the doctor felt was suitable would have to come from her buttocks. The husband and wife agreed that they would tell no one about where the skin came from, and they requested that the doctor also honor their secret. After all, this was a very delicate matter. After the surgery was completed, everyone was astounded at the man's new face. He looked more handsome than he ever had before. All his friends and relatives just went on and on about his youthful beauty. One day, he was alone with his wife, and he was overcome with emotion at her sacrifice. He said, "Dear, I just want to thank you for everything you did for me. How could I possibly repay you?" "My darling," she replied, "I get all the thanks I need every time I see your mother kiss you on the cheek." A wife and her husband were having a dinner party for some important guests. The wife was very excited about this and wanted everything to be perfect. At the very last minute, she realized that she didn't have any snails for the dinner party, so she asked her husband to run down to the beach with the bucket to gather some snails. Very grudgingly, he agreed. He took the bucket, walked out the door, down the steps to the beach. As he was collecting the snails, he ran into a couple of old friends and began to yuck it up, and he soon forgot about his wife's party. It was well past 10 when he remembered. "Oh no, my wife's dinner party." He grabbed his bucket and ran down the beach all the way to his apartment. He was in such a hurry that when he got to the top of the stairs, he dropped the bucket of snails. There were snails all down the stairs. The door opened just then, with a very angry wife standing in the doorway, wondering where he's been all this time. He looked at the snails all down the steps. Then he looked at her, then back at the snails and said, "Come on, guys, we're almost there." Husband is in a good mood. "Darling, remember 25 years ago, I had a rented one-room apartment, a table fan, a black and white TV, and a cycle to use. But at night, I used to sleep beside a beautiful 25-year-old girl. Now I own a luxurious bungalow with 4 LED TVs, a limousine, and Porsche driving servants. But I sleep with a 50-year-old woman. Wife, don't worry. Just find yourself a 25-year-old beautiful woman, and I will make sure that you go back to your one-room rented apartment, table fan, black and white TV, and bicycle." A husband said to his wife, "Honey, I have invited a friend home for supper tonight." His wife replied, "What? Are you crazy? The house is a mess. I didn't have time to go shopping. All the dishes are dirty, and I don't feel like cooking a fancy meal tonight." The husband said, "I know all that." "Then why in the world did you invite your friend for supper tonight?" asked the wife. The guy answered, "Because the poor fool is thinking about getting married." "How did it happen?" the doctor asked Banta as he set Banta's broken leg. "Well, doctor, 15 years ago." "Never mind the past. Tell me how you broke your leg this morning." "Like I was saying, 15 years ago, when I first started working on the farm, that night, right after I'd gone to bed, the farmer's beautiful daughter came into my room. She asked me if there was anything I wanted. I said, 'No, everything is fine.' 'Are you sure?' she asked. 'I'm sure,' I said. 'Isn't there anything I can do for you?' She wanted to know. 'I reckon not,' I replied. 'Excuse me,' said the doctor. 'What the hell does this story have to do with your broken leg?' 'Well, this morning,' Banta explained, 'when it dawned on me what she meant, I fell off the roof.'" A couple had been married for 35 years, and the pair was also celebrating their 60th birthdays. During the celebration, a fairy godmother appeared and said that because they had been such a loving couple all those years, she would grant them each one wish. The wife said she wanted to travel around the world. The fairy godmother waved her magic wand, and boom. The wife had the tickets in her hand. Then it was the husband's turn. He paused for a moment, then said boldly, "Well, I'd like to have a wife 30 years younger than I." The fairy godmother picked up her wand, and boom. He was now 90. Two law partners, Ed and Joe, are driving through the country one evening during a vacation when their car breaks down near a farmhouse. The two men head over to the house and knock on the door. An attractive lady dressed in black opens the door and asks, "Can I help you?" Ed says, "Listen, our car broke down near here, and it's getting late, and, well, we were wondering if you could put us up for the night." The lady shook her head. I don't think so. You see, I'm recently a widow, and it just wouldn't seem proper. What will my neighbors say? Look, says Joe, we won't cause you any trouble. We could sleep in your barn. The lady agrees, and the two men spend the night in her barn. 9 months later, Ed gets a letter at their firm from another lawyer. He reads the letter, then goes immediately into Joe's office next door. Joe, do you remember that widow we met 9 months ago? Yeah, I've got a letter here from her attorney. Just out of curiosity, that night we slept in the barn, did you get up in the middle of the night and make a little visit to the farmhouse? Yeah, says Joe, turning a little red. You didn't happen to get a little intimate with the widow, did you? Well, yes. And did you use my name, by chance? Joe blushes beet red and says, Yeah, Ed, I did. Ed smiles. Cool. She died last month and left me the farm. 3 blondes were sitting by the side of a river, holding fishing poles with the lines in the water. A game warden came up behind them, tapped one on the shoulder, and said, Excuse me, ladies, I'd like to see your fishing licenses. We don't have any, replied the first blonde. Well, if you're going to fish, you need fishing licenses. But, officer, replied the second blonde, we aren't fishing. We all have magnets at the end of our lines, and we're collecting debris off the bottom of the river. The warden lifted up all the lines, and sure enough, there were magnets tied on the end of each line. Well, I know of no law against it, said the warden. Take all the debris you want. And with that, he left. As soon as he was out of sight, the 3 blondes started laughing hysterically. What a dumb cop, the second blonde said to the other 2. Doesn't he know that there are steelhead trout in this river? A blonde heard that baths in milk would make her beautiful. She left a note for her milkman to leave 25 gallons of milk. When the milkman read the note, he felt there must be a mistake. He thought she probably meant 2.5 gallons. So he knocked on the door to clarify the point. The blonde came to the door, and the milkman said, I found your note asking me to leave 25 gallons of milk. Did you mean 2.5 gallons? The blonde said, No, I want 25 gallons. I'm going to fill my bathtub up with milk and take a milk bath so I can look young and beautiful again. The milkman asked, Do you want it pasteurized? The blonde said, No, just up to my I can splash it on my eyes if I need to. Joe and Larry had this mule that was a very hard worker. The only problem was every time they went to put the mule back in his stall, his ears would brush the top of the entrance, and then the old mule would go nuts and kick everything point one day. Joe and Larry decided to cut an opening in the top to prevent this from happening. While they were working, a neighbor stopped by and asked what they were doing, so they explained the problem. The neighbor suggested that they could save a lot of work and time if they simply took a shovel and dug the entrance down a little bit. They thanked their neighbor, and he drove off. Then Joe said to Larry, Some stupid neighbor we have. It's not his feet that are too long, it's his ears. An old man was eating at a truck stop when 3 rough-looking bikers walked in. As they passed the old man, the first biker pushed his cigarette into the old man's pie, then laughed and took a seat at the counter. The second biker picked up the old man's milk and spit into it. The third biker turned over the old man's plate before joining the others at the counter. Without saying a word to the laughing bikers, the old man put his money down, got up, and left the diner. One of the bikers said to the waitress, Not much of a man, was he? The waitress replied, Not much of a truck driver either. He just backed his big rig over 3 motorcycles. An elderly couple was flying to Hawaii for a 2-week vacation to celebrate their 50th anniversary. Suddenly, over the public address system, the captain announces, Ladies and gentlemen, I am afraid I have some very bad news. Our engines have ceased functioning, and we will attempt an emergency landing. Luckily, I see an uncharted island below us, and we should be able to land on the beach. However, the odds are that we may never be rescued and will have to live on the island for the rest of our lives. Thanks to the skill of the flight crew, the plane lands safely on the island. An hour later, the husband turns to his wife and asks, Honey, did we pay the car bill this month? No, sweetheart, she responds. Still shaken from the crash landing, he then asks, Did we pay our credit card bill yet? Oh no, I'm sorry. I forgot to send the check, she says. One last thing. Did you remember to pay the medical bill for the hospital visit last month? He asks. Oh, forgive me, sweetheart, begged the wife. I didn't send that one either. The husband grabs her and gives her the biggest hug in 50 years. She pulls away and asks him, what was the hug for? The husband answers, they'll find us. A gorilla goes into a bar and orders a martini. This totally amazes the bartender, but he thinks, what the heck, I guess I might as well make the drink. So he mixes the martini. He then walks back over to give it to the gorilla, and the animal is holding out a $20 bill. Well, now the bartender is just at a loss for words. He can't believe that a gorilla walked into his bar, ordered a martini, and then actually had a $20 bill to pay for it. So, in amazement, he takes the 20 and walks to the cash register to make the change. While he's standing in front of the cash register, he stops for a second and thinks to himself, let me try something here and see if the gorilla notices anything. So he walks back over to the gorilla and hands him $1 in change. The gorilla doesn't say anything. He just sits there sipping the martini. After a few minutes, the bartender just can't take it anymore. You know, he says to the gorilla, we don't get too many gorillas in here. And the gorilla says, at $19 a drink, I'm not surprised. An older couple was lying in bed one night. The husband was falling asleep, but the wife was in a romantic mood and wanted to talk. She said, you used to hold my hand when we were courting. Wearily, he reached across, held her hand for a second, and tried to get back to sleep. A few moments later, she said, then you used to kiss me. Mildly irritated, he reached across, gave her a peck on the cheek, and settled down to sleep. 30 seconds later, she said, then you used to bite my neck. Angrily, he threw back the bedclothes and got out of bed. Where are you going? She asked. To get my teeth.